Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Well, today we're going to be changing things up, and I'm going to be doing an in-depth interview today with a rabbi from a group of rabbis, very important rabbis, who sent a letter to U.S. President Donald Trump saying no to the peace plan and explaining why. As you all know, that U.S. President Donald Trump, who is very much appreciated here in Israel, has come out with his deal of the century peace plan. He's hoping that this will finally bring peace to the Palestinian Authority, the Arabs who are living in Judea and Samaria, and Israel. However, we know this is doomed for failure because it goes against what God specifically says in the Bible, that this land is Jewish land. And if we give away land, by the way, you should all know, just look at history. Every time we've given away land, we've just become weaker and weaker, our enemies stronger and stronger, and more blood is spilled. On both sides, by the way, because we have to get the terrorists who are opening fire or stabbing or ramming their cars into innocent civilians. We have to do what we have to do to protect our innocent from these terrorists. And so it's both sides. And the only way to have peace, as our famous, of course, prophet Isaiah says, he says in chapter 32, verse 17 through 18, the product of righteousness shall bring peace, and the effect of righteousness, quiet and security forever. You see, peace is not something that you can just buy off of a grocery shelf or buy at Amazon or IKEA or anywhere else. Peace is a result of proper and just living. Because if you live in a society that is corrupt, that has a weak or faulty foundation, peace cannot live there. It has to be fair and just and morally correct. Anything else just will not do. It will fall apart, as we've seen over and over again through all the many peace plans. So this is a live show. If you want to call in and ask a question, make a comment, feel free to do so. Our numbers are on our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and sign into the chat room and say hi to me. We'll be right back.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
So the deal of the century is out, and there are people on both sides of the this deal. People who are saying yes, people who are saying no. People who are trying to understand what exactly does it mean, how much land is going to be for Israel and how much land is going to be for this Palestinian state he wants to see. And I'm going to be interviewing now a rabbi from a group of rabbis who sent a letter to U.S. President Donald Trump saying no to the peace plan and explaining why. Our guest is Rabbi Meir Halevi. He is the spokesperson of the nascent Sanhedrin. Before I bring him on the show, I just want to explain to you what exactly the nascent Sanhedrin is. And in the meantime, if you want to go and look it up on their website, you can go to www.thesanhedrin.org, and we will link to that website where this show is podcasted. So basically, the nascent Sanhedrin is the newer the renewed Sanhedrin, which was in ancient times. And this was an assembly, usually of 71 elders, appointed to sit as a tribunal in every city in the ancient land of Israel. They would judge cases, they would make laws, and for centuries, sadly, due to the exile of the majority of the Jewish people from the land of Israel, the Sanhedrin could not be assembled all this time. However, in the last several years, the new or nascent Sanhedrin has been formed with rabbis here today in Israel who sit on this, and they have written this letter. So let me introduce now our guest, Rabbi Meir Halevi, again, the spokesman of the nascent Sanhedrin. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So a lot of people were wondering for the last year or more what this deal of the century given by U.S. President Donald Trump was going to be. And we see, sadly I say this, that it is just a rehash of the old two-state solution, which we know will never work. So what exactly is the Sanhedrin's, the nascent Sanhedrin's position on this peace plan? And tell us about the letter that you wrote to the president.
Let's go back first to what is the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin, this is the Jewish elders that were appointed by God when Moses said, well, I need help, I need assistance. I cannot lead the whole nation by myself. The Romans, 1600 years ago, they made a law that every soldier that see ordained person, they must be killed. Every soldier that can see a Jewish person as a Jewish, he must be killed. If not, if the soldier will not kill the Jewish or the ordained person, he will be killed, the soldier himself. So 1600 years ago, what was the last, let's say, court meeting in Tiberias, and the Rambam, he gave the right path to how to reestablish the Sanhedrin. And it says it's vital to reestablish the Sanhedrin because otherwise we'll be like all the groups in all the different countries of Jewish in all different countries, and there will be no one religion. And if all the rabbis in Israel will agree about one rabbi, he will be the first ordained rabbi in the Sanhedrin. So 16 years ago, we offered Rav Moshe Halberstam, and all the rabbi says, of course, he was the chief rabbi of the courts of the Haredi Jewish in Jerusalem. He established Zaka. He was the judge of the Machon Puah. He did a lot of things, and everybody knew how big, how great he is in Torah. So we took all the answers to Rav Ovadia Yosef and asked, does he qualify to be ordained in the Sanhedrin? And said, of course he is qualified. Rav Dov Levanoni took it to Rav Shalom Eliashiv.
Just one moment. When our rabbi is saying Rav, R-A-V, it means rabbi, and that's just the Hebrew word for it. Go ahead.
Okay. And they went to the Rabbi or Rav Shalom Eliashiv, and they asked, is he qualified to be ordained in the Sanhedrin? Can he be qualified to ordain others? And he said he's qualified to be ordained and to ordain others. He ordained 3 rabbis, and the 3 rabbis ordained 71 rabbis in Tiberias, exactly the same place where the Sanhedrin stopped 1600 years ago. Wow. So this is the Jewish elders, and now we are over 400. We're 400 rabbis altogether, and it's growing, in moderate rates every year, every time. There are other rabbis that are joining us all the time, thank God. And we had to hear everything about the Trump's deal for the century. We heard all the different let's say views, how to relate it to this. And if you can please read the decision, I'll be very happy about it.
All right. So yes, and I want you to interrupt me, stop me at any time you want to explain something or make a comment, okay? And
Okay.
I'm reading from the letter that did you already send this to U.S. President Donald Trump?
Yes. We did.
Okay. So this is entitled Sanhedrin Decision Pertaining to Trump's Deal of the Century. And they quote from the book of Joel, chapter 4, verse 2. For lo, in those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Yehuda or Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of judgment by God. There I will enter into judgment with them, there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, for they divided my land among themselves. And that's how the letter opens. Stop me at any time, Rabbi. The Sanhedrin's official statement opened with a prayer of thanksgiving to the God of Israel and Master of the world. Quote, we thank God for the positive attitude of America's leader, President Donald Trump, towards the people of Israel, and God has thus honored him with good deeds like King Cyrus. For anybody who doesn't know who King Cyrus is, he was a famous Persian king who was actually very friendly towards the Jews and allowed the rebuilding of the temple that they had destroyed. The Sanhedrin noted Trump's most significant actions: recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, transferring the American embassy to Jerusalem, President Trump's declaration recognizing that the Golan is a sovereign part of the state of Israel, the declaration by the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, which stated that the State Department's opinion established in 1978 is null and void, and that now the official U.S. policy is that Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, that's the West Bank, some people term it as incorrectly, are legal under international law. For generations, there have... Yes, go ahead.
When we saw the actions of the Donald Trump's towards the reality towards the Jewish nations, we formed a coin with President Donald Trump, with Cyrus, and the Declaration of Balfour. It was sold all over the country. Actually, the Chinese copied it and sold millions of coins like this. They printed it on shirts, on tables, on everything. It was really, really all over the world, and it actually brand Donald Trump as one of the historical, let's say, figures or persons like Cyrus. And this is why it was all over the world. Okay, so this is based on what he did. His actions. Okay, now we can continue.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of this segment, so I'll continue afterwards, but I want to say here that if anybody has questions or comments, you can feel free to call into the show. Our numbers are on the top of our homepage at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and you can speak with Rabbi Meir Halevi. He's here to answer your questions. By the way, can I tell everybody where you were born? Do you mind?
Okay.
Rabbi Halevi was born in Iraq, and Iraq used to be even Babylon, and it was one of the exiles that the Jews went to. So I'm just imagining, Rabbi, how many centuries your family goes back from that exile.
Exactly. I can tell you exactly.
You'll have to wait. You'll have to wait
Okay.
until the next segment because we're going to the next segment now. But again, I want to remind everybody, if you have a comment or question, please feel free to call into the show. And the music's on. I just can't hear it. No, not yet. Okay, can you answer it in like 10 seconds?
10 seconds. But we were on Mount Sinai. We were Levites. We served God in the first temple, in the temple of King Solomon. We were exiled to Babylon. We stayed there for 2,500 years.
Wow.
And my parents then came to Israel, and I was the firstborn to my grandfather.
Amazing.
And to my...
Okay, hold it right there, everybody. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and our guest is Rabbi Meir Halevi. He is the spokesperson of the nascent Sanhedrin. If you don't understand what that is, go back to the beginning of the show, and we explain what that is. And the Sanhedrin, which is a body of rabbis, came together and they wrote a public letter to U.S. President Donald Trump, very respectfully. However, they said that they have to decline when it comes to his two-state solution and peace plan. And I was in the middle of reading his letter, but before I get back to that, I want to just say that our guest here, very fascinating, he told us in the last segment, that just repeat what you said really quickly, Rabbi.
Okay, my family, my genealogy, we are Levites. We were on Mount Sinai. We served God in the temple of King Solomon. We were exiled to Babylon, and we stayed there for 2,500 years. We did not come with Ezra to build the second temple. And after 2,500 years, my parents, they came to Israel, and I was the firstborn to my father and to my grandfather after 2,500 years in Israel.
Wow, amazing.
So this is my genealogy. So and 11 of my forefathers were ordained in the Sanhedrin, in the old Sanhedrin.
Wow.
So
you have to write a book. You have to write a book.
Yeah, I'm in the process.
All right.
And okay.
All right. So continue with the letter. They're saying to U.S. President Donald Trump very respectfully, for generations there have always been righteous among the nations, advocating and working towards the redemption of Israel, such as King Cyrus, the Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Declaration, and the United Nations Declaration of the modern Jewish state, or of a Jewish state. The good deeds of every person are recorded in heaven for eternity. And it goes on to say here, the biblical basis for relating to President Donald Trump's centennial plan. The Torah clearly established the boundaries of the land of Israel in several places, as well as the requirement for the Jews to possess it. And it goes on in the book of Exodus and says, I will set your borders from the Sea of Reeds to the Sea of Philistia, and from the wilderness to the Euphrates, for I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hands, and you will drive them out before you. And another quote from the book of Numbers in the Bible, in the Torah. And you shall take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have assigned the land to you to possess. The prophets warn that the nations will attempt to divide the land of Israel, and that this will be the means for the downfall. And then again, they quote what I read before in the book of Joel. We congratulate the American leader, President Trump, for not failing God to be punished like the British, who divided the land of Israel and were punished by the disintegration of the British Empire to shreds, precisely as the prophet Joel writes of, quote, the great judgment quoted above. As these
just alone. I can say that the British were the greatest empire in the whole world ever, in the whole mankind history, due to the three things that they had: massive navy. They built, wherever they arrived, they built railroads, and they used a telegraph. And there were, they always said that the sun does not set on the British Empire, which was true. Now, when they divided the Israel land, they just collapsed. They lost everything. And you can see what is compared to the USA now. They're almost like, it's amazing how fast they just collapsed, because they divided 2/3 of the country and made another country which called Jordan, which was never there. So we don't want Trump to reach to this punishment. This is why we pray to God that he will be on course of regaining a thrive and prosperity, and not be like the British. If you can please continue.
Okay. As the Sanhedrin, or the Jewish court of Israel, we will gladly consider any program that a world leader suggests if it is in accordance with the Torah. Therefore, in the program as proposed by the President of the United States, we accept the application of Jewish sovereignty insofar as it does not oblige us to abandon our rights and obligations pertaining to the land of Israel according to the borders set out in the divine promise recorded in the Torah. Therefore, the government of Israel is obligated to accept sovereignty over all the territories of Israel within the borders described in the Torah. The Sanhedrin's decision was signed by Rabbi Dov Stein, Rabbi Yoel Schwartz, and Rabbi Yishai Ba'avad.
Okay, let me explain to you what happened. A little history, short history. Since the Arab country, they tried a few times to kill us, and they said, we will kill all the Jews in Israel, we'll throw them to the sea, and so on. When they say that when they saw that they cannot do that, they came with the idea of building the PLO, Palestinian, the terror organization. They were hosted at Jordan, and they, of course, because they're terrorists, this is what they can do. They start to destroy Jordan country. And then on September, I forgot exactly the year, King Hussein, he killed 1,000 of them, and they had to run away. The only country that wanted to host them is Lebanon. Lebanon was like the pearl of the Middle East. So all the terrorists of the PLO, they went to Lebanon, and as they know they're terrorists, they destroyed Lebanon. And now Lebanon is going to bankruptcy. It's really anarchy. Really,
they also slaughtered all the Christians there, pretty much in southern Lebanon.
Thousands of Christians. So until we had operation in Lebanon, Israel country, we had an operation in Lebanon. So all of them went to Tunisia. In Tunisia, they stayed about, I think, 17 years. And then the Oslo Agreement, they brought all the terrorists from Tunisia that, during all this time they were gathering other terrorists from all the different Islamic countries. And they brought them to Israel, to the West Bank, as you call it, to Judea, Samaria. They gave them guns. And the only thing that they know to do is to be terrorists. And now when they came to Israel, part of them went to Gaza, and the Hamas, they rose on Gaza. And let's say if I would receive Gaza, I would make it a pearl. I would make it a, tourist country, a high-tech country. And what they did, the only thing that they can do is,
destroy,
building rockets
Yeah.
and terror. They do not know nothing else. In Israel, in Judah Samaria, they pay them $1 billion every year just to let them keep the other terrorists from not attacking us. And now, actually, the plan, the Trump's century plan, is to give them a country. I wrote to you. It's like giving Antifa in the USA. Give them a cities or places. Give them load them with guns and ammunition and everything, and now to give them a state. Now, what will happen? It will be a second version of Gaza. Every single point in Israel will be
under rocket fire.
The rocket fire, missiles, all kinds of rockets. Peace will not come from this. There will be thousands of deaths and injuries and so on and so on. So this is why we cannot accept the Trump's deal of the century as is. There are parts of the plan which is on the sovereignty, which is good, but all the rest, how can we accept it? Because we foresee we see the forthcoming. We see exactly what will happen. It will be another Gaza country.
Right. Rabbi, hold on one moment. We have a caller right before we go to the break. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And 10 seconds. Go ahead.
My name is Antonio from
Okay.
Washington, D.C.
Antonio, what's your question for the rabbi?
My statement is, I support Trump. I like him a lot, but the two-state solution is not doable. I tweeted to him and Prime Minister Bibi regarding the issue. I'm totally against it because Israel is a Jewish state, and there's no exception. Israel absolutely cannot be a two-state solution. And I think, this is my personal opinion, what's going on in the U.S. is based on what's going on in Israel right now. I mean, what could happen to Israel if the U.S., if Israel could become a two-state solution, two states, the same thing would happen to the U.S.
Okay, Antonio, I'm really sorry. We've come to the end of this segment. If you like, you can write us a question in the chat room, and I can try to answer it if we have time. So Rabbi Antonio says that he is against the two-state solution as well. He says that it can't be, and that what's happening here in Israel is similar to what, I believe that's what he said, that what's happening in America is what would happen here in Israel. All right, everybody, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentikoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany is but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and our guest is Rabbi Meir Halevi. He's a spokesman for the nascent Sanhedrin. And we were talking about a letter that this group of rabbis wrote to the Honorable U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that the peace plan that he's proposing is basically the two-state solution, and we cannot have a terrorist state in our midst. We cannot give up the land of Israel that the Jewish people was promised this by God in the Torah. And we had a caller even that called in agreeing, saying that the two-state solution will never work, and that we're seeing what's going on in the United States right now. Perhaps there's some connection. And we're going to another caller now as well. So let's say hello to Ron, calling in from Baltimore. Hi there, Ron. What is your question for Rabbi Halevi?
Thank you. Shalom, everybody. Okay, my question is this. Is there a danger that we might be repeating the same mistake the Arabs made in 1948, in that they wouldn't accept as much as the UN would give them, but rather they insisted on having the whole thing? So are we making that same mistake and not accepting what we can get, but instead demanding that we get the whole thing? Great question. Okay, Rabbi, what do you have to say?
Okay, let's put it this way. There is spiritual rules. Whenever there is, exactly as we have physical rules, chemical rules, there is spiritual rules. God told us that He will take us out of the country, and He did. We were in exile for 2,000 years. Before that, we were in exile in Egypt. We came back, and now God told us He will gather us back to Israel. Now, whomever opposed these rules can be hurted. It's simple as that. I mean, we are applying what God told us in the prophets. Let's go to numbers. There were scientists that asked how many percentage of the prophets were fulfilled. They numbered all the prophets from Abraham to Malachi, to the last prophet, and it turned out that 95% of the prophets were fulfilled. So now we're in the middle of gathering all the Israel, and then, of course, Messiah will be revealed, and God will reveal Himself exactly as He did on Mount Sinai. So if we will give, let's put it this way, the terrorist organization, they're doing their prototypes and their experiments in Israel. When they see a success, then they copy it to all the other nations. Like right now, when they saw that terrorists received in Israel, a place and with guns, and now they're doing it in France. They start actually conquering Europe. Exactly the same thing will happen in the U.S. Exactly the same thing will happen everywhere, since these are the rules. Whomever take out part of Israel to the terrorist, and that will happen in other countries. As simple as that. Okay,
Rabbi, I want to jump in and just answer Ron. He gave a very good question, and just say that, first of all, the Arabs have already rejected Donald Trump's peace plan. They already said we have nothing to do with it. And not only that, but they've also stated publicly that they have also rejected now the Oslo peace accords that they signed. So we can just leave it right there. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Yeah, so this is exactly what we're saying. There is no one that we can even interact. There are the Arabs in Israel, in the Israel land. They are divided to three. Part of them are actually Jews that were forced to be Muslims. We know of them. We have a lot of, we met them many times. Part of them are good Muslims, that they want to live peacefully and so on. And part of them, they're Amalekite, and they do nothing else than terror. So our message to the President, Donald Trump, please do not hear your advisors or on this giving to the terrorist, not only the land, not only the weapons, a form of a state. Because the moment that will happen, that will cause a lot of damage to the whole world. Exactly as I'm sure it was, let's say it was good intentions of Barack Obama. He talked about the Arab Springs. Now, Barack Obama caused killing of over 300,000 Muslims every year since he declared the Arab Spring. If this deal of the century will go out, it will cause a lot of bloodshed, not only in Israel, all over the world, because then all the terrorists all over the world will rise and say, we want our own territory. And you see, even in Dijon, in France, they fighting between the terrorist organization who will rule Dijon. So a city in France. So you see that right in front of your eyes, exactly what we're saying, exactly the rules, the spiritual rules. If we keep them, then we'll be saved, we'll prosper and thrive. But if not, it will cause a lot of bloodshed. And why should we?
So, Rabbi, we only have about 4 minutes left to the show. What do you want to leave us with?
What I want to leave you with is that let's say in Israel there is a small story. Under Zeke, he established a television, and he had to have a long shot of Jerusalem. He hired a plane and he measured the light. He closed the eyes of the camera accordingly. He went out, everything was black. He hired another plane. He took two cameras, two light measurement. He measured it again, closed it again, and went down to develop it. Everything was black. He was very puzzled. And then he asked his friends, look what happened to me. So everybody told him, Adir, you don't know what happened? If you want to professionally have a long shot of Jerusalem, if you measure the light, you have to close the eyes twice as much as in every other place in the world. I said, are you sure? They said yes. He had another plane, and he took the photo of the Jerusalem. He closed the eyes twice as much as anywhere else in the world, and he went down, he developed it, everything was absolutely fine. In Jerusalem, there is a special light. So now Trump wants to bring this special light of Jerusalem to the terrorists, to the one that the only thing that they know is actually developing terror. This is what they want. Please don't do it. What are you doing? I know that he receives advices even from Israelis, but they're not the right advisors. So for the sake of the world, for the sake of Israel, for the sake of the whole population, the Muslims and the Christians and everybody, please only apply the rules that are in accordance to the Torah, to what God told us, to what God gave us, and that will make the world much, much better than now.
Right. And we have to remember what it says in the Bible and the Torah as well, that those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And so as long as U.S. President Donald Trump is listening to the creator of the world, God, and what he tells us in the Bible, he will be blessed, and the American people will be blessed. And we love the American people. We appreciate U.S. President Donald Trump, but the two-state solution is not only not workable, it's also, in my opinion, immoral, unjust, not even just for the Jewish people, but for the Arabs who are living under this corrupt government. For them, it's not even good. Go ahead, Rabbi. Last word.
And that's where we had many meetings with muftis. Muftis is like the chief person in every country, and with Sunnis, not the radicals, and they all really, according to the Quran, they have to assist us to build a third temple, according to the Quran. We had meetings in Jordan, in Turkey, in UK, and we're in a very good relationship with the Muslims, but not the radicals, not the crazy one. So why to empower exactly the same mistakes as Barack Obama did, that he empowered the radicals, the Islamic Brotherhood? This is exactly what will happen in this plan. But if we will empower the good Muslims, the Sunnis, the one that wants to live peaceful, everybody will prosper. I'm talking in Israel, the Arabs in Israel, the whole world, and it will be a totally different scenarios. This is what we are saying.
No, absolutely. All right. And Rabbi, we have about 60 seconds left. What would anything else that you want to say that you didn't have a chance to say on the show?
Oh, well, we had many things that I don't know exactly. What God told us is that God will give us the land slowly, not in one thing. And we do appreciate what the President Donald Trump did, but now somebody is make him do this mistake, and we ask him, please don't do that. As simple as that. Only the good things.
Amen, amen, amen. All right. Well, we're wishing you, Rabbi, that you prosper, that the nascent Sanhedrin prospers. I'm happy to hear that you have good relations with different religious leaders around the world who are also wanting to live in peace and wanting to serve God and recognizing that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people and that we should have a third temple and it should be a light into the world and where all nations can come and worship and praise God, and not just the Jewish people, but for all the world. And if they knew how they would be blessed, they would be forcing us and helping us even more to build a temple. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.